What's up, family? This is Daku, and as some of you that are close to me know, my father made his transition this week, and we are making the arrangements to lay him to rest. But one thing that we've been taught is that revolutionary work never stops. It never stops. And while I'm itching to get up to Baltimore, I'm stuck down in DC, which isn't a problem. I can still do the work right down here in DC. Now, one thing that I want to remind people, all of our politicians, all of what we may call house Negroes and Uncle Toms, everybody that has a stake in white supremacy, who has a stake in the United Snakes, I need to remind you that as long as you have slaves, then you're going to have rebels. And as long as you have rebels, you're going to have burning and looting. That's the history of slavery right here in the United Snakes of America. So we're going to read a little bit out of Slave Insurrections in the United Snakes, 1800 to 1865 and earlier. And I'm going to show you a couple of clips so you can understand that if you do not abolish slavery in the United Snakes, yes, modern day slavery, and we don't have time to explain to you that you still slaves. You're going to have to do a little research yourself. And if you can get out of your programming and begin to think just a little bit, you'll understand that you are indeed still a slave. All right? Slavery never ended. It simply changed forms, and they expanded the plantation boundaries. So you got a little more room and freedom to move around, but you're still a slave. So check out these next clips. I'm going to read a little bit out of the book Slave Insurrections in the United Snakes, 1800 through 1865. So we're going to read an excerpt out of the book, and we're going to go all the way back to 1741 in New York. As I was talking to a young lady yesterday, she said that her folks had come from New York and they'd never been slaves, and that's possible. But slavery existed even in New York City. Okay? And in New York, the slaves were burning buildings and they were looting. Sounds like Baltimore, sounds like Ferguson, sounds like LA, sounds like the burning down of America in '68 when they killed Dr. King. Now on page 28 it says that events really began on the night of February 28, 1741. While the authorities were busy seeking the persons responsible for the robbery, because it was a robbery, but it was making a noise in the east to strike in the west, but you'll see in a minute. A number of fires broke out in private homes and public buildings. Again, reminds you of Ferguson and Baltimore, correct? And remember, as long as you have slavery, you're going to have the burning down of buildings and you're going to have looting, which both of them are rebellious acts. Both of them are revolutionary acts, but I will continue here. For a period of more than 30 days, the inhabitants were kept in a state of excitement by fire alarms. In many cases, before one fire could be extinguished, the alarm would sound in another part of the city. Fires appeared in barns, haystacks, cow stables, and Negro cabins. Frequent complaints were made of goods being missing at each fire. That's looting. As long as you have slavery, then you're going to have rebels and revolutionaries that burn down buildings and loot. So stop saying, you Negroes and Uncle Toms out there, you Negropeans and house Negroes out there, stop saying that looting is senseless. Looting is a revolutionary act. And every time you see these slaves rebel, you see some buildings getting burned down. And we're going to show you that in these next couple of clips.
This was an astonishing act of ethnic cleansing. It put an end to a civilization which had flourished in Spain for 700 years. These people have become known as the Moors. Propaganda, sparked by the Crusades, has given us an enduring image. The diabolical Moor, a dark-skinned savage. Once the 300-year-old dynasty cracked, it didn't take long for the palace to come under attack. Medina al-Zahra was quickly smashed and plundered.
Saint-Domingue remained mostly calm in Toussaint's wake. Jacques Dessalines and the other black officers continued cooperating with French General Victor Leclerc. But then, news arrived from the nearby colony of Guadeloupe. Napoleon had reinstated slavery. One more time, the former slaves of Saint-Domingue took to the field against European armies. One fleeing white, Pierre Chazot, paused on a mountaintop to observe the devastation.
No less than 10 square leagues of country burning like volcanoes. The rapidity of the conflagration was such as to make the beholder believe that large and thick trains of gunpowder had previously been laid down.
Becomes this extreme scorched earth kind of campaign in which Dessalines and others burn the towns in order to basically leave the French with no choice but to depart.
Dessalines' scorched earth tactics worked. In 1803, the French army was finally driven out. 50,000 French soldiers had died.
It is the morning of February 23rd, 1763. The slaves on plantation Magdalen Burn in the Kanji River revolt against their Dutch masters. They killed the estate manager and several others, loot and set fire to buildings. They then stormed the nearby estate of La Providence with similar success.
Protests to be peaceful. They are trying to heal as a community, and for all of these fires to be breaking out in their area, it's just awful. Meanwhile, protesters are moving along in an organized fashion. You have to believe that these fires were committed by, this is a storage facility in West Florissant.
And this is actually the area where fire crews did respond and had to actually leave because of shots fired in the area. So it was an unsafe situation. They had to leave, and you can see there that it's fully engulfed.
Again, wherever you see slavery, you're going to see rebels, you're going to see buildings being burned, and you're going to see looting. All of these are revolutionary acts. Even if the looter is not aware that his or her action is revolutionary. LA riots, 1992.
Driving in front of it, if Dave will pull back just a little bit, you'll be able to see the fire truck, the ladder truck coming. I see another engine behind it, and I see some paramedic truck, it looks like.
Earlier today, well, now we're going to stay on the shot for Chopper 2.
I see a sign on the side of the building that says TVs and VCRs. So, and we're told that something else major developing right now. Back to Parker Center. Jody Baskerville, is it still peaceful there? Jody Baskerville, can you hear me? Well, we've lost that shot. We're told something is happening at Parker Center. There have been several hundred demonstrators outside there. Earlier, they were pelting riot police with rocks and bottles.
Sure, and a man with a hoodie pulled tight over his face approached me with mace. He told me to kick it out. He wanted my cell phone, and he sprayed me in the head. And I retreated back to my safe spot where I was with a store owner who had a shotgun protecting his property.
Wow, just to give us a sense of how dangerous it is, and also the point that Justin's making, everybody, and I think important to emphasize that a lot of the gangs have been on the streets, they say, trying to impose their own sorts of order, but playing a very significant role in this. Right now you're looking at pictures of looters going into the Baltimore Mall. I just told you the police had reported there were people in there looting.
Again, you got buildings burning in 1968 here in Washington, D.C., April the 4th. Look at the devastation. Slavery comes with it, the burning down of buildings, and looting. Ain't no way around it. When the rebels become restless, this is what's going to happen. And it's been happening for hundreds of years. But we seem to be satisfied with slavery. So as long as you fail to destroy slavery, you always going to have burnings and lootings and, yes, even killings as a result.